So I'm about to go and get my COVID vaccination jab because whatever. And it struck me how curious it is that I keep seeing so many adverts and so much social pressure about getting this jab. And I thought, how strange it is because when you watch pandemic movies and zombie movies and things like that, the moment that there's like a vaccine, there are riots about people trying to get a hold of the vaccine. And people are smashing in pharmacy windows and going crazy, fighting each other just to get a hold of this vaccine. And then in reality, we have a global pandemic, and the opposite is true. And governments actually have to actively put out material to persuade and convince people to take it. And it made me think about this curious paradox that there is in life, and it's everywhere, this paradox. And the ancient Greeks called this the unity of opposites, in that one thing implies another, yin and yang, up and down, cold and hot, back and forth, heads and tails, good and evil, men and women, all of this sort of thing. There's this curious flip side to everything, one side and another. And the more I get into meditation and the more I find inner peace, the more I notice this paradox everywhere. And I wonder if you've ever noticed it too, in certain things like, have you ever noticed that the people who are the best looking, gorgeous people are the most insecure, really insecure about themselves? That's a paradox. It doesn't compute. Or how people who are materially very wealthy find no wealth or value in life often, not at all the time, but it's a case that the money doesn't guarantee finding that value or finding that wealth in life. So there's a paradox there as well. And the more I look at this, the more I just see it everywhere. And it can be incredibly liberating, very, very liberating, and give you a huge sense of peace. So just try this little practice of all of your ideas, all of your opinions, all of your theories, everything, just for a short while, just for a moment, just consider that the exact opposite is true. Literally everything that you hold so firmly, no, I stand by this and I really believe this. Just for a moment, consider that maybe the precise opposite is actually true. And you might think, oh, well, no, I'm not doing that. These are my firmly held beliefs. But just see what happens if just for a moment, it's not permanent, you go right back to it, you can just flip it at any time, just keep flipping it. You can always go back to whatever, but just for a moment consider it. And this can get you out of a more rigid way of thinking, and it gives you a huge sense of relief, because it removes this egocentricity of the way that we perceive the world by just considering, have you ever had an argument with somebody and during the argument you're absolutely 100% convinced that you're right, you could not be wrong, and then over the next few weeks or so, and then on reflection looking back, you're like, I can see where they were coming from actually. And that feeling shouldn't give you a sense of feeling down about yourself. That should be an incredibly liberating feeling, to be able to look back and reflect and go, actually, you know what, fair enough. And that feeling of, you know what, fair enough, doesn't that just give us a huge sense of relief? But Corin, all that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to stand by and do nothing. that mentality currently is causing more suffering than it's alleviating. Because there's a lot of people who are trying to save the world, and it comes from a good place, it comes from a virtuous place, but all that's happening is that there's just a massive argument that's resulting. And it's such a difficult one to explain, because naturally it's a good idea to be virtuous and have values and stand for a cause and be compassionate. But you also have to understand that the person at the other side of the argument is a human being as well. And they have their reasons they have their experiences and their education that they've had to hold the beliefs that they have. So if you see yourself not as the whole coin, but just as one side of the coin, and you can still firmly, passionately believe in whatever, absolutely, but just knowing this unity of opposites, that for every opinion and belief, the exact opposite exists as well. And how interesting that is, that in many ways, for all of its faults, and there are many, social media has given us a platform where somebody will post something and then immediately you get the exact counterpoint, because these comment sections, but then this is where all these arguments happen, and it's just generating so much negativity, and it's generating so much stress and worry. So obviously, yes, being passionate about causes and standing up for them, but don't feel like you have to do that in order to be a good person. And the more I live as well, years and years down the line, I look back at opinions and beliefs I held so strongly when I was younger. Now I'm actually looking at the other side of the coin. And life in many ways is like, when you're going to sleep and you're lying on your side, and then that gets uncomfortable, so you turn over and you lie on the other side. Yeah, it's more comfortable on that side because I've been sleeping on the other side for too long. And then you lie on that side and you get uncomfortable, so you sleep on the other side. This is how humanity is going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all the time. So I found that quite interesting, how there's been a lot of pressure and persuasion to go and get this vaccine. I'm like, I thought it would be the opposite. I thought I'd be absolutely like banging doors down to go and get it. Curious, very curious. But that's what I wanted to say today. Is just try looking at the other side of the coin. Sleep on the other side of the bed. You can pick all your stern convictions and passions back up whenever you wish, but just internally, just for a moment, let yourself off the hook and recognize there's two sides to every coin. It's all good. It's all good. All of it. Because what is conflict and chaos on one level is total unity at another. The lion eats the gazelle. The gazelle needs the lion. Otherwise it wouldn't exist. That's one to go away and contemplate. We know that the lion needs the gazelle because it needs to eat. But ask yourself, does the gazelle also need the lion? Would the gazelle exist without the lion? That's a very curious one to go and ponder. And I have no horse in the race, so get the vaccine or don't. It doesn't bother me at all. Unity of opposites. It's literally just struck me in doing this video. I'm trying to save the world. And I'm trying to stand by my stern passions. And there's probably a lot of people watching this video getting annoyed and upset with what they believe I'm implying. Trying to clear the mud out of the water. You just disturb more mud, all the more. You can't win. but don't stop trying. That's everything today. Bless.